Joining us on this episode is Summer Grace. Summer is a wedding and lifestyle photographer based in Los Angeles and the Pacific Northwest. She's quickly found a niche style of storytelling, blending digital and film to create a look and successful business that has her distinct signature on every piece of work. I'm Kyle Wilson, and this is The Photographer's Problem. How you doing, Summer?
Doing good.
So we've got a series of quick questions that I got to ask right off the top of this, and then we'll dive into everything. So first thing being is, what's been the proudest moment of your career?
Oh my gosh. I feel like more recently has been really awesome. I've been able to dive more into like education and products, presets, stuff like that. And I know that might sound strange, but I love just helping people. So being able to watch all of that finally come to life after many years of hoping to do that has been really cool. I mean, outside of that, just reflecting on like what I wanted to become so many years ago, now being where I'm at today is really cool. So I don't even know what the future looks like because I feel like I've reached my dreams, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's kind of a great problem to be having.
That sounds really strange, but I've just been reflecting on that recently, like even just financial stability and comfortability. I feel like I was never comfortable. I was always moving or like halfway homeless on accident. So finally being in a place where I'm like comfortable and slowing down a little and not having to worry as much has been really awesome.
That's really awesome. I definitely have been in that spot where like there's been moments in my life where I'm like, I don't have a job, I don't have a car, I'm sleeping on a mattress on the floor at like a studio that we're renovating currently. What is happening right now? And so to be on the opposite end of that or at the end of that little road is pretty cool. What's been your worst business decision?
Oh man. I also didn't really prepare for these, so I just wanted to say whatever came into my mind. I feel like it's kind of better. This is a tough topic technically because I'm still working through a lot of it with my team. But I've had like two scenarios just partnering with people I shouldn't have. And I think, I don't know, those were bad because in hindsight, like I really don't think it's wise to work with friends or family.
Are these like business partners for photography work, or is it for like workshop partnering or?
No, well, one was for a workshop I was supposed to teach at many years ago when I was still new. So that was just a bad decision because I didn't know them. I didn't vet it like I would today. And then one was more recently, I'm trying to get a course out. We just had some problems in the production team. And now that course has been pushed like a year because after 9 months of filming at ground zero with no videos. So that's an interesting place to be. And we launched an email list and collected people for the course. And so it's really hard for me to also just not have a product for everyone. I get DM'd randomly and I'm like, man, this feels like I'm going through a breakup. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. And I don't technically have a answer because I don't have time to come up with an answer mid-wedding season because I'm still, while teaching and releasing things, I'm in that pivot of still very much shooting weddings full time. Everything I've done this year has been like, in my spare time, I'm working all the time. It's like balancing two different jobs. So it's been interesting. Next year, I'll take much less weddings with the hopes of a lot more of it to be education.
Yeah.
But this year, I'm kind of like doing both. So when we had to cut ties in May with the course, next filming couldn't be until November. We have weddings most weekends until our own wedding. Me and my fiancé are getting married in October. So yeah, and then I want to take a month off and enjoy time with him. Yeah. So course filming can't start back until November.
This time of year really does feel like that. I remember being a kid and hearing there's not enough hours in the day or not enough days in the week. And I thought, that's silly. I really totally understand that this time of year, it's really crazy.
Yeah. So just strange. Like, I don't want to say anything bad because I love the people I worked with. It just like didn't work out. And I would rather probably film on a computer now, do something like Loom presentation kind of thing. But yeah, I've seen beautiful opportunities come right, like literally the same day that we cut ties. I got asked to do a workshop that changed my career. So it's just like, I've seen things come where I feel like stars are aligning, but it's been hard. Definitely like I was kind of budgeting for that to also be like, good source of income as well as just a wonderful thing that I've been wanting to do and that we poured like at least 40 hours of filming into. So that is a bummer, But yeah.
It's pretty great that the universe is kind of speaking to you that way, as things like, even as something feels like a failure or something's going wrong, you're able to see almost immediate results of like kind of separating from that and going, okay, that wasn't meant for me, or, you know, this all sounds a little wee woo, but like it wasn't meant for me or meant for my business. And there's going to be something else that's going to be another like, door that opens.
Tech has made so many advances since May. Well, since we started filming, because we started filming last October. We were trying to get them out by the spring. And it's going to be called Summer School. I don't know, kind of cute, play on words.
I love it.
So each like fall or spring, we're going to release new courses, kind of like new semesters, 102s, 103s, all the things. And I think also light at the end of the tunnel is like tech has made so many advances since October, AI, stuff like that, that some of the things we were filming would have been dated within months. So I think that's kind of exciting. I can kind of re-record with a fresh perspective of like new tech involved with some of the courses, even social media. Like what I said about social media in October, I 100% would refilm that anyways. So I'm like, that's kind of cool. I hate, you know, all the hours that were lost, and I hope the friendship with my friends comes back around. But I think even the courses, I probably would have had to refilm. I mean, courses don't have the most longevity when they are about technology or social media.
Something that's super relevant currently, yeah. I mean, it's going to be maybe not time that you lost or hours that you lost, but more hours that you upskilled or learned something that you now know is different. On the back end of that, what's been your best business decision?
Oh my,
you can't say cutting ties with those same people. You can't answer this.
That would be hilarious. No, that was a hard one. I had many sleepless nights. Feel like outsourcing, like I don't outsource a ton because I love doing a lot of it myself. I love working. I would much rather charge more and do it myself than outsource. But when it comes to outsourcing things that don't affect like the art of it per se for me, like, because that's just my decision. I don't do the culling. I don't really answer many emails anymore. I don't send contracts. I take meetings. I take the Zoom calls, and I do the work, like the shooting, but everything else, mostly Jake does. He's 80% of his income is through my business. So basically all of it outside of his music dreams. And so our goal is to fund a lot of those through, you know, just building this business now so that he can pursue a lot of his recording with who he'd want to record with and stuff like that. So yeah, he's a musician, but he, within the last like 2 years, has been like training with me, started as a second shooter, and now he works basically full time with me. And then I also have 2 different marketing guys. So that's
cool. That's really great that your outsource is, you know, it's just next door. It's just in the next room over.
Like, I honestly couldn't do it with anyone that wasn't like, it's just so good that like we can talk all the time, and like he understands how I would speak. I think outsourcing emailing was really hard for me because I wanted it to sound like me, but he types them just like me. Sometimes I laugh. I'm like, this is crazy. You sound exactly how I would
he's
speak.
Found your voice just by knowing you so intimately, which is really cool.
Yeah.
What's the camera that you're carrying with you most these days, whether it be for work or personal?
I have like digital wise an R5. I do have 2 different Fujis. I have like the X100V and X Pro 3. I feel like the X100V I just carry like around town, go to coffee. And then film wise, probably my Contax G2.
Nice.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And what's your problem?
Oh, okay. So I feel like we all have a ton of problems, but outside of like probably working too much, I am actually trying to niche into a strange world where I don't want to shoot elopements, but I travel a lot. And I started in elopements. So I actually started my career before COVID, and then COVID kind of helped. I always like hate saying that, but in a way, COVID helped in the sense that what I was doing became popular. And I did elopements because I had a lot of like social anxiety and like couldn't do crowds or loud noises or lights. Basically a wedding, you know, they're a lot. And so I loved elopements and I was into the outdoors more, but now I actually don't enjoy them as much. So I've actually decided to not take any more outside of the ones I've already
What's
booked.
the reason that you're not enjoying it as much now? What's changed?
I feel like when the industry changed and when COVID did make them popular, I think it made them so popular that sometimes people do them not because it's right for them and their soul, and more because they see it on Instagram and it would be something that looks cool online or to their friends. And I think that's 100% okay. And if I do take them again, it might be this like vetted, like, is this really what you want? But I feel like oftentimes a lot of what I see now, especially with my Instagram presence, I feel like I get the people who want it for the photos, but then maybe they have a reception and then they don't have the budget for a reception photographer, and this time with all their amazing friends and family just doesn't get documented because I don't know, I feel like they're doing something, and I hate to use the word authentic, but like that wasn't authentic to them because it's cool on Instagram.
Yeah, I said some time ago, I remember when I think I was complaining about this a lot when Pinterest was really big. It was, I mean, not to say that it's not now, but it was really big in a different way than it is now. And people were using it as really great inspiration for their days, which I think is great. I think the modern elopement happened because of Bench Heish. I think that things happen in Iceland because of people like Gabe McClintock. And I think those like beautiful stories happen because of Raphael Boyart or something. Like there's these different little things that people get inspired by. But if you allow the sum of your wedding day or elopement or whatnot to be just totally pulled from some other location rather than yourself, then you're going to get this really inauthentic kind of copycat day. And I remember a specific wedding. It was something like the bride had on some like suede pants that said bride bedazzled on the back, and something about it really bugged me. I was like, this girl went on Etsy and bought these stupid pants, and just so that she could wear them for 45 minutes in the morning and have photos with them, not because she actually cares. And it was like those little things that started to bug me. And so I can see how I transitioned from that kind of space where I was shooting 200 or 300 weddings in, I'm sorry, 200 or 300 person weddings in this like kind of everybody's there for the stuff rather than the people. And smaller intimate elopements felt like people were there for the people and the relationships and the friends and family that would come in for it. But if during COVID, I can see now how stuff has shifted where people said, well, we still want to get married. So all those same demographic of people that I was trying to get away from just started infecting an entire another sector of the wedding industry and making them kind of unfun again.
And that's where like, well, I don't know. I have like one wedding over 200. I've never shot anything over 200 just because I liked the more intimate. But I mean, my favorite wedding these days are like 150 to 175. So I did take a wedding next year that's like 250 just to see like what, I mean, I know like. I'll still do good. Yeah. If I enjoy it, doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It's if the client has a good experience. So anyways, I'm stoked for that one. It's in LA. I'm actually really excited to just see, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But and I don't inherently think those larger weddings are bad. I think there's a ton of clients that have large weddings that still have a really, they have their heart and their emotions in the right place and the type of clientele that I would like.
I'm like, I don't have that many friends. I'm glad that you do.
Yeah, that too. Whenever I hear, oh, we have 12 people on each side of the wedding party, I don't have 12 people that's that close that I want to hang out with like that. So it's kind of crazy, but I think they're just harder to find those people in that kind of wedding.
Niching into the middle. So that's like my goal is like, I feel like I've already done it. I feel like most of my weddings are in like the 60 to 175. And when a lot of people hear I like have never really done weddings over 200 and I'm not really shooting elopements, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, there is a middle. There's a really awesome middle. And somehow all of my weddings have fallen into it, which has been beautiful because it's like small enough that they still get to like speak to everyone and have time with everyone, party with everyone that's there, but big enough that they can still party. And I think what I've started to really like about the larger weddings is that it is an experience and like a story unfolding before you. You're not creating it for them. I like that, like, I'm more documentary style. Like, you're there to document what's happening. You're not making things happen.
Yeah, on a 10-person or less day, you're kind of the you're wedding planner.
Telling the story for them, basically.
Yeah, you're the facilitator of everything. Whereas on a day like that, you're totally right. I can guide the client, or we can guide the client in a certain way to like the most ideal day or timeline or weather or location or direction of the sun. But ultimately, once the day starts, I call it professional winging. I'm just winging it. I'm hoping for the best. I am doing everything on the fly, and we'll see how it goes. But I have no control over a day at that scale. I think that those kind of weddings where you don't get to control it are kind of cool. Like there's I think it's Ferraristi had a thing that he talked about a few years ago where in the mornings he likes to challenge himself, and he will create like a human tripod. So he just stands in one spot for like 20 minutes straight, and he won't move, and he only documents whatsoever within reach of his position that he's in, forcing himself to just see everything within a 5 or 10 foot radius, which I think is kind of cool. And it's just a way to like create new puzzles and challenges for yourself on a day that you totally have no control over.
Yeah. Next year we actually changed our packaging. I know the industry, they're always like this hour, this hour, this hour, this hour. Like next year, like all I'm offering is full day. You have up to 12 hours because I just want to be there for the whole story. I don't want you to be cramming a 12-hour day into an 8-hour timeline to where everything is fake or posed or just not what's actually happening, because you kind of have to do that when you shorten something into like a 6 or 8-hour timeline, especially with real large weddings. Large, anything with a real production, like they normally need more than 8 hours. I've had a few without bridal parties.
8's tight.
8 is tight. And so I'm like, if someone books me, I'm going to be there, and if you only need 10 hours, I'll only be there for 10 hours. But I want you to know I will be there for the whole day, and you can just relax and plan your day as if you would if there was no rushed timeline,
Yeah, if you're doing all day coverage like that, are you, and most of your work is travel stuff, everybody takes a different approach to travel. Are you just doing a flat rate on top of that for travel as well? Are you nickel and diming along the way?
I do travel for almost everything. In the Gorge and in Portland, anything within 4 hours I actually don't charge travel for because I market to Oregon. And so I'm like, that would just be kind of lying if I'm like, I shoot here all the time, also pay me extra. So that's the only one that's included is anything in Oregon and Washington. But outside of that, I actually do add it on, which I know is also like unpopular opinion. But sometimes, like when the war hit, I had to pay like $1,000 to fly to North Carolina, and I'm not comfortable losing that. And clients that want to fly you out will pay for all of that. Yeah. So how I pitch it to my clients is more of like, I'm going to add it in 3 to 6 months before, whatever's most economical for you. I have bought into a travel agency, so I do get good deals, which is good. And I'll add it in then, and I just give them a rough estimate before. That way they know I'll never go over that, but also never go below. So I shoot higher. Like I just, in their estimate, will tell them something way higher than I'd expect in case there's a catastrophic economic event like a war or COVID, things that make flights that should be $200, like 800. Like I could have gone to Europe for the price that I went to Texas for once. So with that in mind, I think clients also, I tell them that, like I'm very open about that, and they're like, makes sense. I don't want you to like get stuck paying extra, because they understand they're flying you there. It's a luxury that they're choosing,
Yeah. I think that's a really good approach. I live in Chicago, but I market in Seattle, so I don't charge any travel rate for that. That's my decision to say, I don't want to shoot weddings in the Midwest in cornfields or golf courses. I want to shoot them in mountains and forests. So that's on me to eat. But I've just always done, I'm public about it, so I don't care. I do like a $1,600 travel rate. That gets me everywhere I got to go. If I'm going to California, it gets me a lot of extra money to like feel a little chill about it. If I got to go to Iceland, it gets me there too. It lets somebody watch my dog and keep an eye on my plants and be away from home and all those other things that come with it. And then I can daisy chain flights together, as I'm sure you do too. I don't want to have to worry about the nickel and dime of it. I just want to throw a number on there and make it as easiest for the client, because they've already got 6,000 other things to deal with. They don't need to wonder, did our photographer book a flight?
Yeah.
Just know that it's already taken care of, and I'll be there.
Yeah, I honestly, if I were going to do it, would probably be more of like a 1,500, something that would be higher than what I would probably use. That way they don't have to worry about it. And I think I am trying to wean a little more into the luxury industry. I might approach that, especially with the new packages. But I also like my most popular package is more than one day. So, I've gone over that. Like when I've had a $2,000 expense before in the Northeast. And that was like on the cheap end. Like I ate some of that because I was like, I don't feel comfortable charging you more than $2,000.
I don't mind too much of those, just because, somebody flies me out to LA from Chicago. It's going to be a $200 flight. It's going to be an Airbnb and a car and some food. There's no way I'm going to hit the 1,600.
No.
But on those weddings where I got to get to the middle of Nowheresville, North Carolina, and the flight does happen to be way more expensive, and every car rental is absurd for some reason, and the coffee I'm getting is $9 or something ridiculous, then it kind of like, weighs it out. That's my complaint lately. That's my problem. Matcha lattes are $9 and that's out of control.
Dude, literally, I'm like, this little energy drink, too much,
crazy.
I needed it.
I don't mind the offset that way. So it kind of feels, and I don't know, there was a point where I realized I like traveling for work, and when I'm home, I'm a real homebody, but I really like my dog and I really like staying here with him. And so leaving him feels like I should charge for that.
Yeah.
And having to have someone watch him and those things. And I went, that should all be, I shouldn't have to feel any financial stress about that for any kind of work. That should just be in the mix.
No, honestly, like no one has ever really known, even when you said like based out of Tacoma and Seattle, I was like, no one knows I live here.
Oops, my bad.
No, it's okay. It's like my alter ego. No one knows my last name or where I live. But I've always traveled for work because I never really claimed to have a home base. It just kind of happened, especially with like more adventure elopements. Also when I started my career, I just like drove all the way down the West Coast and just like shot stuff all over. So I've never had a local market like ever. Never really shot much in Seattle. My most local market would be that I shoot in the Gorge a lot out in Oregon.
In my opinion, I've had the local market. So I started an hour west of Chicago and I had a studio there that like, I just hit the market cap for that area. Like there's just no charging at the time period. It was something like $3,500 or $3,800. I wasn't going to like break beyond that until I went into the city. And even then I realized like later on as I marketed, it's easier in my opinion to market everywhere than to have a really good market in one spot. It's so much easier to be a worldwide or a travel or a West Coast photographer than it is to be the big deal in Tacoma or big deal in Boise.
One of my problems is though, like I want to establish a slightly more local presence just because, especially here, like if I could make the same to shoot in Tacoma as I could to fly to the middle of nowhere, North Carolina or New Hampshire, like there's just no point. I really only want to travel for things I really want to travel for now, because I reached that like, everyone thinks like traveling is so cool and now you get to travel for work. And I'm like, man, honestly, I would rather like take a couple more here with my dog, be relaxed, have some friends, than be on a flight every weekend or even every once a month, because at that point you're like always getting used to like being back home. And I love traveling, but I reached the point where I was like, I think I'd rather just like make more and take a vacation to Mexico. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't get stressed about it. And I know a lot of people get like, they go traveling is really stressful. And I'm sure it is for somebody, but I think wedding photographers as a whole are pretty prone to like pushing away stress.
Yeah.
But there's a beauty in, I finished my wedding. It's 9:00. I get to go home or go grab drinks with friends. I get to sleep in my bed tonight. Comparatively, all right, I got to go to the hotel, then I got to wake up really early, go through TSA, get to the airport, get on the plane, make sure my Pelican case fits on the plane, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just, it's pretty sweet to be home. Or when you have to travel for a wedding that you're like, why am I here?
Yeah.
I didn't want to, oh man, the thing, I booked it in a year out, something changed, all their little, the venue changed or something like that. And now I'm in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, sure wish I was home right now.
I want to niche into like, I will still obviously travel, but probably to like 5 places, like kind of having my states. I'd love to like getting down to LA will be exciting because I'd love Southern California to be a little more of my market, that people see me as local, even though I don't live there. Kind of like Oregon, people think I live there, even though I don't. Have a presence in Utah. All of these places I'm totally okay with. There's just like, I don't need to go to Alabama, like even though I'm from the South, I take like one in Georgia just because nice to get paid to see my family. But like, I think sometimes traveling is like over glamorized because of social media. And I do not like when people are like, oh, here's this discount to go to Europe. I'm like, dude, that's exhausting. Get paid to go there. Like
nobody sees me like half asleep at the airport gate culling photos and getting sick that week because I'm tired because I was already on 2 other flights. Like that's the part that doesn't really get shown. If you were to like hyper focus your market back into the Seattle Tacoma area, would you rather be in those Seattle Tacoma proper, or are you hoping to like keep it within, hey, I'm going to go out into the coast or out into the rainforest or within, a few hours drive of where you're at versus just like right downtown?
There's one venue walking distance from my house. I'm like,
That's cool.
that would be kind of cool. I could just walk there. It's on the water. But outside of that, I honestly like I want to experience some of the Seattle scene a little more just to make sure my opinions on it are right. But I think when I say local, just like continuing my presence in the Columbia River Gorge and that Hood River area because it's like the Lake Como of Oregon. And it brings some of my best clients. And it's like these full weekend. They're normally all, so I'm like, still, I'm shooting destination weddings, but like not for me, like for them. So like they're flying to Oregon. Actually, a lot of them from Chicago. We might know some of the same people. Weirdly enough, a lot of Chicago people are flying to Hood River.
That doesn't surprise me. Just because there's nowhere. I actually really liked the Seattle and Portland wedding community in terms of the networking. If I was a bride or a groom and I was trying to find the venue and the photographer and the videographer and the people that all align in the way that I want, it would be really easy. Whereas here, I do think there's a pretty big disconnect, and I don't really know why. But there's not. You can't really find the planner and the photographer and the venue, and they all like land in your artistic realm that you want them to be. So it's easiest choices to say, let's just fly to Portland and hire Summer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great. The venues there are just gorgeous. They attract that like it's such smaller towns that you can't really have weddings over 150 people anyways because you have to use shuttles from Portland. So when you get married in the Gorge, you literally have to hire shuttles. It's this whole thing. And a lot of clients, it's hard for them, but most of them have amazing planners and can make it happen. But like most venues only park 20 people. So it's this whole thing where like you're there for the weekend. A lot of them, I'm going to their after parties until like 2 a.m. Like I'm going to their rehearsal dinners. Like it's this whole experience. And I would love to like do that a little more in California would be nice. I think just stylistically, I love shooting film and film loves sun. And there's not as much here.
No, there's not.
I think stylistically, I'd love to like tap into the California market a little more, just like literally the sun, like just based off of light. I like the light there. But yeah, I think the community we have there is really cool. And so when I say locally, I mean like Portland, the Gorge. I'm like, it'd be cool if we could one day have like a little tiny home and some land out there just so that I stop paying for hotels there because a town of 7,000 with that many weddings coming through, their hotels are so expensive.
Yeah, like especially and they're seasonally out of this world.
It's so bad.
But it's interesting to hear that because I think I keep getting surprised by every person I talk to that say they want to kind of shift more locally or transfer to or from elopements. Like I talked recently with Kat Eckelboom White out of Vienna, Austria, and she's only wants to shoot elopements in the mountains, drive 3 or 4 hours. Or on the flip side, I've got somebody like a friend of mine, Melody Joy, out of Edinburgh, and she goes, yeah, I know the Highlands are there and it's 2 hours away, but I want to go to the Highlands with my husband.
Yeah.
I want to just shoot weddings in town, and then he and I will go do stuff. Like, I don't want to have to do that with clients. I want to come home and be with my partner at home.
I think sustainability, I feel like it's not often people in the industry talk about like sustainability, like for yourself. And I mean, I might not be the best person to talk on it since I haven't been in the industry as long as the people who the binges and the Jennifer Moore, people like that. But I did teach a workshop with Jen, and I was like, you gotta teach just a thing on like holistic work ethic, like just how are you still doing it 15 years down the road? Because most people quit or burn out. And then like what practices did you set up? Because, this over glorified, like I must be traveling all the time on social media for people to think it's cool. And this like image that I feel like Instagram and TikTok, Pinterest have created in the last 5 years, I feel like also created the reason that most photographers quit within 5 years.
Yeah, they're trying to, my big shtick with Instagram or any social media has been for a while that it's people are publicizing their successes and they're not sharing. It's private success and public success, but private defeats. And so all the weddings that didn't work out or all the bookings that didn't come through or all the emotional roller coasters that come with it don't really get discussed or publicized, which I feel like I'm a little better about on my Instagram, which makes me just sound like a whiny kid online, just whining about my feelings all the time. But it doesn't matter if you're shooting 5 weddings or 30 weddings or traveling or local, those same things really come up and come through. And so I do think sustainability is really important. That I chatted with someone the other day, they shot, oh my gosh, like 112 weddings in 1 year in Australia. And it's just, they've been doing that for years. That's just their market and how they operate.
I would actually be in a mental hospital.
Yeah. I remember the year I did 58. I took over my studio from another couple of photographers. We shot 58. I edited 58. You couldn't pay me to tell you one of those bride and groom's names. And that's when I started shifting to lower numbers, because I want to spend time with these people because they matter, and honoring them matters. And the only way to honor the client is to do it sustainably for yourself. And so if you're just trying to chase 20, 30, 40 weddings a year and be on an airplane every week, well, you're going to burn out, you're going to get tired, and your hobby that turned into a profession is going to turn into something you don't like to do.
And you're going to quit.
Yep. And then your bride and groom, your clients of your last year, the year prior, are going to feel that. They're going to see it. I feel it sometimes. I show up and, I've slowly began the transition away, because I know that when I show up to a wedding, sometimes I'm, oh man, I don't want to be here today. I want to be back home. I want to be on my bike with my friends. Yeah. And so that's not good.
No, I feel like that's like if I've ever booked a double header, it hasn't necessarily been on purpose. I had like 2 in my whole career. And it was more so because
good for you, by the way. I wish I could say I had 2.
One time it was because I said I was free, and it was with a venue I absolutely love working at in the Gorge. And so I said I was free, and then I was like, I had a wedding the next day. And I was like, well, she already was so excited. We had met, we had made a connection. Literally one of my favorite clients to this day. Just, we are like soul bonded now. So I'm really glad I pulled it off, drove the 4 hours to the wedding the next day. And the one the next day was only like 20 people, and it was like a 6 hour. So like, it was fine. But yeah, even from the get-go, my boundary was like no doubles, never a triple. I would never in my life. And the thing is, while it can bring money, I think so many times the industry forgets that like these are people's weddings. Most of the time, these are once in a lifetime experiences for these people. And we just want to think of it like we're just doing autopilot. And I'm like, no, you got to think like this is someone's wedding. And I think so many people just forget that and are chasing a grind that ultimately affects such a sacred thing for people. I sound so like emotional. I'm like, but like,
no,
literally.
I completely agree. It's, my first half of my career was shooting 30 to 60 weddings a year for a studio. And it was shooting in golf courses and trying to make them not look like golf courses, and very suburb weddings, and 250 people in a ballroom. And it felt like I'm just replicating last Saturday's wedding and thinking about next Saturday's wedding, or in those cases, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday's wedding, because I was doing triples all the time. All the time. And it was just, how can I make sure that the bar stays settled? Whereas now, or in the last few years, it's, well, hey, this Saturday is Lauren and Ryan, and the way they met and the way they were raised and the people that they are so uniquely individual to them, that how could I possibly try to create stuff with them that looks anything like so-and-so last week or so-and-so next week? They have to be, I think that's just honoring your client. It is a wedding day. It's not a family portrait session that's just, let's get the 4 kids hugging or whatever. It's really, really important.
And if you are doing 3 every weekend, the odds that you would have time to even get to know these people, to tell their story accurately.
Yeah. Those 3 weekends are trash. There's no way I'm not just producing. And I know people, and I've seen it online, and I can look at an Instagram and go, oh, you shoot a lot of weddings and you're doing a very good job of consistency, but none of it feels unique. It just feels unique to maybe your brand, but it does not feel unique to the client from any one day to the next.
And that's like, I think I feel like since I entered the industry I'd been doing photography before, whether it be landscape or whatever, people that have been shooting before weddings, like if they had been shooting before, you might already know people. So I entered in already having a ton of very successful wedding photographer friends. And I also just made it a point to make a lot of friends, because I was like, I need work. If I have all these friends, hopefully if they're booked, it wasn't for that reason, but I probably met like 100 people the first 6 months of me going full time. So I knew all these people, and I feel like they were giving me all this advice. And I saw so many burnout with Instagram, and I saw a ton burnout just doing too many. And I was like, that is just, I don't want to do that. And so I'm glad I set that boundary, but I think a lot of people think they have to do it to live. They have to do it to make a livable income. And so I think that's something cool. I feel like I feel like the industry now does see that like they can charge enough to make a livable income without doing 50, 60 weddings. But
It
it
definitely depends
is,
on the photographer too. And like, I think that there's pieces of this industry that don't get taught at workshops or talked about. Like, when have you ever been to a workshop and seen anyone talk about budget
yeah.
or data backup or sustainability or integrity with your clients or business ethics? Like, those kinds of things really get glossed over. And if you kind of incorporate all those things together, you can sit down and go, okay, in order for me to find the right clients that I actually connect with and ethically vibe with and our values are in line, I need to book this many, and I need to do it at this price in order to be able to sustain myself and my life and my partner and what I want to do. And then you come up with a number and you go, cool, let's build an entire business around that. But it is unfortunately like building a studio and a brand and everything is kind of like building an airplane while it's flying. And so you have to like make these little changes along the way. But I do think I hear so many people and I go, wait, what are you charging? And I go, well, there's your problem. You're shooting 60 weddings a year at $3,000. What the hell are you doing? Like, you only know how to, you're afraid of hearing no from clients, and no will give you so much power to charge more, to get better clients, to stay the heck home once in a while.
Yeah, I have no issue saying no. I don't even have an issue if people ghost me, because I'm like, I probably inquired for like 6 photographers to my own wedding. Did I get back to all those people? No. Because you're so stressed and you're overwhelmed. And even as a photographer, I was like, I literally don't have time to email this person back that I don't want them. First of all, it's awkward. Second of all, I just didn't have time. And I feel like the industry is so bent up on like, oh no, what if someone doesn't respond? And I'm like, you should be saying no. If you're saying yes to every client, your price isn't high enough. But
it's a big shift. I used to have, it was something like 98% of clients that inquired with me booked me. It was some ridiculous, crazy number because I was the best photographer in a 150,000 person town. Like, it was an easy market to do well in and have a price point that said I'm premium without actually being premium. Like $3,500 isn't premium. And to flip the other direction and go, oh, every 1,000 inquiries I get, maybe 40 of those are going to say yes. And then I get told no all the time or ghosted, and I go, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I think that's like kind of growth in the industry, is going, okay, I didn't get an email back. Okay, people have their phones out at the wedding. Okay, this and that. That's just part of it. It's just like, accept it and move along with it.
Unpopular opinion is I actually think it's the cutest thing when everyone has their little phone out. I like take pictures of like grandparents with their little phone. It's so cute. And honestly, we do take a while to get our galleries back. Like, yeah. I don't really mind.
I like a lot of phones or no phones. Yeah. Anything in the middle, I'm like one phone. But if it's weird. A sea of phones,
it's cute.
I think it's the coolest.
Yes. I also, back on the slightly financial side, I don't even know if this is what tangent we want to go on, but I don't love, since we were talking about like sustainability, ethics, what people are teaching out at workshops, I actually don't love like the 6-figure business pitch, because honestly, a business bringing in 6 figures for some is still like lower middle class. Like, it's still, you're struggling a lot in America specifically, especially in a place like Seattle. Like, just because my business has hit 6 figures doesn't mean I was making more than I worked at 18. You're seeing personal income and business income. No one talks about how different that is.
Yeah. On top of the fact that it's seasonal. So you've got a business that at minimum is going to cost you $400 or $500 a month of overhead after you account for insurance, website, gear, gallery hosting, CRM, and so on. So now you've got that, plus taxes, plus your travel expenses, and all these things come into a big focus. So even if you pull in 100 G's, but you're living in a place like Tacoma or LA or Chicago, New York, Long Beach, wherever, maybe you're seeing 30 or 40 or 50 of that if you're lucky. And the only reason it doesn't feel so terrible is because you're booking in these big seasonal chunks. So it never, but if you stop at any point, it's like you've been drinking so much you'll die from the hangover. Like, it's impossible to just like exit abruptly.
No, literally. And I think I don't like talking about this, and I think that's why no one talks about it, because it does seem like such a privileged thing to say, like, my business hit 6 figures and I still feel poor. But like, I was living off $1,000 a month for the first 6 months to a year of my career. I was literally like living in a tiny home. I had no AC, you know, a little composting toilet. Like it was like those, and I had been without a place to sleep for like 2 months couch surfing. And I did all of this to make it happen. And even now, until literally now, like 4 or 5 years went by, and even at a 6-figure business, like it just, I was not comfortable. And, you know, in Georgia, of course, back home, I probably would have been like really comfortable, but I wouldn't have been as satisfied with my weddings. So I enjoy living here, but I don't love like I can get you a 6-figure business, because no one's talking about like a 6-figure business is not a 6-figure income. And a 6-figure income would be quite crazy, because you're probably pulling in 400,000 or something like that.
And that 6-figure income business thing has been a spiel for so long, 10 years. It's got to like, all right, maybe we need to bump that up to like 6-figure squared, because really, 6 figures just really, I mean, I think it's something like in the Bay Area, 2 people bringing in a 6-figure income are still middle class, which obviously they could choose to live somewhere else, but then they'd have to live somewhere else. And so part of the reason I live in Chicago is because it's wildly cheaper cost of living than the other 2 big cities. If I had LA weather, I'd have LA rent.
Yeah.
But 6-figure weddings is not, it's really, I mean, it's neat. It's a cool line to pull in, but I think it needs to be closer to.
I'm a big spender. I am like, Jake tells me, he's like, oh my gosh, it always scares him when he first met me, but I'm always like you have to spend to make. And if I had not risked so much, I would not be where I am today. But even like, gosh, I drop like almost 500 a week on film, probably. It is absurd. And yes, I'm charging clients technically for that. But when that comes into, when that looks into an income sheet, like it's keeps crazy. Raising that number that they're paying for that. And I'm like, well, you got to minus that back. Like, you know, and so I think it's hard. Like, I don't love seeing those spiels, because I'm like, to me, it doesn't feel honest. Like, I want to build you a sustainable business, or one that you enjoy, not one. And hopefully, you know, that equates to a certain financial goal you have, because some people are, an $80,000 business would make them so happy because they're living somewhere where it's so much more affordable. I have some friends who do live in Georgia. When they heard me say a 6-figure business income is barely enough for me to live off of, they were like, and I'm like,
yeah, I've had similar faces for years. I've said a successful wedding business needs to make 6 figures, like at minimum. For me to shoot 20 to 30 weddings a year, it needs to hit that number to pay for everything else and taxes and all those things, and then for me to operate and survive. And my friends who, when I was 25 or something at the time and said this, and my friends are bartenders and like waiters and construction workers, they heard that and they looked at me like I was out of my mind.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't understand, because you don't have any overhead for your job that you work at. Like, I have to deal with all sides of it, as do you and any photographer. So it's just such a wildly different space.
So
on the film note, though, it's interesting here you say you pay that much, because recently I was like ranting on my threads, which is not a place I even really use, but it was one of my first posts where I was like, can someone explain, like I'm 5, how everyone is able to shoot all this film? Is there a back alley guy I got a handshake and he gives me cheap film and cheap dev? Like, is there do I just not know a guy, or is there a ton of money being made in this line of work that I'm unaware of?
I am solely supplying my lab people's income. I'm kidding. But literally,
wait, who's your lab?
Okay, well, I'm just using a small town like mom and pop shop near Tacoma. It's called Speedy.
Cool.
I've been thinking about mailing to certain places because there's a certain tone I want, and my lab is not the kind where you give a reference image, you know what I mean?
Do you mind if I ask you what you're currently, where are you buying film from, and what are you paying for Dev and Scan? Because I'm actually genuinely...
I have not. I don't know if I actually know that off the top of my head, because I have been going them for so long. I just give it to them and they just charge me money. But it probably is like anywhere from $18 to $22.
Okay, then that tracks. Yeah, I have Bellows here in town, and they have another location in Miami.
That's amazing.
And I will publicly say Bellows needs to get their back end shit together. I get rolls of film that aren't mine, and weird crops and strange orientations. Like, it's all over the place.
That's strange, because I've heard really good things of them.
Because the quality film that you do get back is really good when it comes in right. Like, the Dev and Scan is the best.
Yeah.
And I think I'd been paying $25 for Dev and Scan for high res.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bellows came at me on my threads and were like, you could just do medium res and you don't really need the high unless you're going to print it later for something. And I said, that's true, but that means I need to organize my film negative so I can plan for it later, which I don't have in place.
I will say,
and
I think our like high res TIFF scans are also 25.
Yeah, so that tracks then. I know I could go to Indie, which I really like, and it's going to be 11 a roll or so, but then I've got to ship it and wait and all that stuff, and then be stressed about shipping it.
That's what's so hard for me is like I have a specific tone I would love, and I think, well, my lab, they were like, we love your tones, and I'm like, I know, but that's not. There's just a very specific look I kind of want to accomplish, and I don't. They have so much power. They have so much more power than most people think. Like I've been in the back of labs. Like I've seen everything they touch. I know they're doing way more than you think they're doing. Yeah. And if I took it to a place in Seattle that I drove to, I could give them a reference image, which would be nice. So I could do that because I don't feel comfortable mailing it. Again, once in a lifetime experiences for these people, and film is so popular. Like people sometimes want that more than digital photos. So if something happened in the mail, it could open, it could get super hot, they could lose it. My mom went to get her
go ahead, sorry.
My mom went to get her wedding ring fixed and they lost it in the mail of 30 years. Like if her wedding ring can get lost in the mail, your film can get lost in the mail.
I mean, Benj took there was a story years ago where the first 2 weeks of his child's life he documented solely on film and then mailed it in, and the bag showed up to Indy ripped in the corner with no film inside. And thankfully, because Benj is Benj, he made a huge yelling fit about it online, got a hold of UPS. UPS found the baggie that he had stored it in underneath a conveyor belt somewhere. Thank God saved, but not everyone's so lucky. And so, I don't know, I like the idea of mailing it for the fact that something, an Auckland photographer I was having coffee with, Simon, he does so much film and he goes, I don't mind paying more because it means the people that are doing the lab work, that is their full-time career and there's very little turnover. And so they're going to be really good at it compared to if I pay less, I might just be getting someone that's working there for a summer or a couple of years, or it's not their career, it's just a job. And it goes, I won't get the same quality consistently. And when I take that into account, thinking of like Bellows or something like that, I definitely get it. But also, I just want to shoot more film and I don't want it to cost me $50 every time I want to go see pictures I took of my friends at the beach.
But I think maybe like weddings, I suck it up and I either use the place I love because I love them.
Yeah.
Or I test the place in Seattle because two of the friends of the place I was going to started their own lab, and he's the one that I bought most of my cameras from, and I've been in the back with him. Like he's definitely scanned them to my preference and not to, if you give it to a place with 6-year-old man, it's going to look like a 6-year-old man developed it and scanned it. And so I can tell him like, this is the look I'm going for. He will do that. And so I do like that, and I could take it to them. And so I think I might suck it up and just drive to Seattle. I just hate driving to Seattle. It's like from Tacoma, just so much traffic.
Terrible.
And I like dropping it off like right after a wedding, so I know it's not in my fridge where I could somehow lose it. I don't know, you know what I mean? I just like getting it there. So that would look like me driving to Seattle like once every 2 weeks, and then I have to wait longer. My lab gets it back so fast since they're more local. But
that's the draw for Bellows with me too. They're a 90-second, 2-minute, 5-minute bike ride from me, super close. I can get it back tomorrow. I can get it back today if I pay a little bit more for it. That's crazy. And I know I could home dev. Everyone says, oh, learn to home dev and scan. There's no way
I don't have time.
It's going to look. I don't have time to learn that craft, nor do I really want to. I'd rather just give it to somebody that spent 10 years doing it.
I have a scanner for Polaroids just so I can scan them in digitally, like nice. And so I do have an Epson V600. So I literally could. I have the scanner to scan film, but I barely have time to scan my Polaroids, and it takes a while. Like my scanner, like just to scan 4 Polaroids, like, I mean, normally I just do it like once a month, everyone's, and get it done, put them in a little envelope, mail them off to the client. That's like their gift, because I'm not a big like client gift person. I like giving them something that actually, not a candle that they're going to throw away. I like giving them something that is actually like purposeful. So it being something like Polaroids I enjoy, it works out. But all of that to say, even that process, like I'm devoting a whole day to just sitting there and menially just scanning these don't know. But I was going to say
now
for
do
you,
that for 5 rolls at 24 frames. You'd be
absolutely
like,
not. Some
my
weddings
life
I
is
shoot like
wasting.
12 to 15 rolls. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I would.
too much time.
But if you're just doing friends, though, I feel like weddings, take it to pillows. But if it's friends, you should experiment. Well,
I am just lazy and frugal, and those two things don't go together very well. And so I have, wherever it is, because I just rearranged, I have 14 rolls sitting on my desk somewhere right now that have been unlabeled because I never label anything, and they'll be great. I know there's stuff on there that's so gold from like over a year ago, but every time I go to drop it, I'm like, $50, $50 to see photos from my point and shoot on a bike ride day. Yeah. So maybe I'll learn the craft, but probably not. I'll just whine about it for a while until I just suck it up and go and pay for it.
Well, I honestly didn't know how I'd feel getting the X100V or any of the Fujis, but financially, I'm honestly more likely, even though I love film, I'm also frugal. I'm from the South. Like financially, I enjoy just bringing that on walks. And my film cameras are like kind of expensive, the ones I do own. And so since I do need them for weddings and I just could take a little point and shoot that I have in the closet, then I'm like, man, that's like $50 for like a little point and shoot of like, it's just like I enjoy my X100V right now, especially for simple things. And
I've been really looking at, I've been telling myself I've been looking at it forever, but a Ricoh GR3 for the same thing. I just want quick point and shoot photos. I was leaving to pick up some furniture the other day and I saw these two like back alley dudes smoking a cigarette as the sun was coming down. And I went, oh my gosh, how do I not have a camera on me all the time like this? And I have some Leicas and things like that, but I don't have a pocketable thing. And so I think that's my personal next move. Maybe that'll fit the gap of, okay, I want to take photos. I want to have the ability to create whenever I want. That's better than my phone, but I don't want to spend $50 every time I do it.
100V before. Luckily, I didn't have to pay as much as they're selling right now. But that's what I like it for. Like, I literally just used to take it, like, if we go on a grocery store walk, like, well, we can walk to a grocery store where I live, which is nice. So, like, we go on walks or skateboard, and I just throw it in a fanny pack. Now, if I ate it on my board and broke the 100V, they do cost so much, I'd be kind of sad. But it is what it is.
But the accessibility the accessibility of having that, that's so killer.
I just wanted something that made me love, not like, I felt like I fell into only shooting weddings, and I was like, I didn't even start in the wedding industry. Like, I just want to shoot for fun. If I'm on a walk, if we're skating, like if I'm with friends, if we're with his nieces and nephews, like I want to bring like the love of photography back for me. And I feel like I got stuck into like only shooting if I was being paid. And so that was where like the 100V and point and shoot cameras, like even if they were filmed, like I was just like, I just need to like do this. And so
it's nice. It's nice to have that gear. Like my Nikons, they're in a box. Unless there's cash involved, they're in a box. Like
my R5.
That's work stuff. And then I have stupidly expensive Leicas for my chase to try to enjoy doing it without weddings attached. And so I think you do have to have both. And I shoot a lot of model and portrait work just because I just want control over it. I don't want to worry about timelines and other people. And if I want to cancel, I cancel. And it's my thing to dictate and make it fun the way I want to.
And I think everyone needs that, like I feel like most people, we don't get into this just for work. We get into it because we love it. So we have to make sure we continue loving it, like, I don't know.
There was, it's actually like one of my favorite creative quotes. It was on this blog, The Oatmeal, and it was something about creativity is like breathing. And if you're constantly exhaling, then you're going to die. Like you have to inhale at some point. So you need to go take photos or work or whatever craft or, art that you need to do. That's an inhale. So you can get some fresh air in before you can continue to do it. You have to have both.
No, 100%.
Well, amazing. I won't take up any more of your time today. We get such a good, like an hour flew by so quick. This was so great. I know, right? We got hot takes.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh gosh, we'll see.
No, it's so great. Summer, thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to hear more from you next.
Yeah, I'm stoked. Thank you guys.